G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and today I want to talk about this. This is very interesting to me because, well, for a start, it's not right. But I want to break down what's being said in this article, talk about the miniatures being used, because obviously Primaris Space Marines in 30k colours with 30k Terminators. That's a bit strange. And I also want to touch on a few little other nigglies that come to mind. So, first things first. You can build your army however you want, paint it however you want, use it however you want. This is true. That said, in the 30k community, we're a bit elitist. Just a little bit. And I'll explain why, and why it's not a bad thing. So, in 30k, we're trying to replicate the events that happen in the books and the novels, to tell that narrative, that story, the overarching plot that plays out over the Horus Heresy. We want to talk about and play games about our favourite legions, our favourite guard regiments, our favourite battle fleet skirmishes, that kind of thing. So, we're protective of that setting, and we're protective of it because it's a really good setting. And adding things in that shouldn't be in the setting is, we'll say, disheartening. Especially if they're not really kitted out correctly for the setting. And some might go, it doesn't matter, it's just toys, it's just make-believe canon anyway. But they're missing a fundamental point. If you took something like Star Wars, and you had Naboo N1 fighters, the yellow spaceships out of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, flying around with the TIE fighters, chasing the Millennium Falcon in Empire Strikes Back, it would break a bit of immersion when you started asking, hang on, why are they there? Same thing if you're watching Star Trek, and the Enterprise is a different ship one week. If it wasn't explained away and it just was, you'd be like, what the fuck is going on there? Well, it's kind of the same thing here. You're looking at it going, those aren't Mark III or Mark IV Marines. Now, I think the army's well painted, so kudos to the guy for that, to start with, to Simon here. Now, let's talk about what's being actually said, and then we'll go into something else. Simon says, my Sons of Horus army is one of my most recent creations. When I started in the hobby, I collected Tyranids, and I painted 3 different armies of them over the years. Then I read the Horus Heresy novels and everything changed. I love the depth that they give the Great Crusade era Space Marines, and I find a lot of the characters really interesting and relatable. I especially like the Brotherhood aspects of the Legions, with warrior pacts, lodges, and things like that. Okay, cool. I believe the first Horus Heresy novel takes place... It takes place just after Ulanor. So, it's actually quite near to the end of the Heresy, to the end of the Great Crusade, as we all know, because it's after Ulanor when the Emperor basically considers the Great Crusade done and hands over control to Horus. And it's a bit after this that Horus actually changes the Sons of Horus from the Lunar Wolves to the Sons of Horus, going from the white and black scheme to the green scheme that you see. He goes on to say, initially I thought about collecting the Emperor's Children. I'm a big fan of Fulgrim, but in the end I was swayed by the Sons of Horus. They've got so much character and so many characters. And they're the main legion in the first 3 novels, so there's loads of background on them. I also have a bit of a taste for the bad guys, so that definitely appealed to me. Okay, that's completely fair points. I totally agree with him. They do have some interesting characters, although they're a little bit underrepresented on the tabletop. I mean, we do have Malagurst, Abaddon, and Loken, which is all fine. But we don't have Little Horus. We'll probably never get Tormageddon because, dead. Spoilers. Now, character focus, the next paragraph. At first, I focused on painting loads of rank and file models, but it wasn't long before I started exploring the background and seeking out characters I really liked. That's a great way to do it, guys, to be honest. Take take a look at the actual units on the ground and build those first. You'll need tactical squads and stuff before you can go out and play a real game. You can't just start with a Primarch, and a Fellblade tank or something. That's a poor way to start out, generally, because you'll paint those really awesome units and then you've got nothing left to reward yourself with after it. Instead, you're going down to the rank and file, which is just monotonous to paint. So, yeah, I definitely agree with starting out that way. Tarek Tolgaden particularly interested me, but there is no miniature for him, so I converted my own. I really like to convert models and find the process very rewarding, taking the artwork and descriptions of the characters in the novels and bringing them to life in miniature. I don't see Tolgaden in any of these models represented, so that's a bit strange. They'd make note of it but not show it. But maybe there's another page here we're not seeing which shows us more. I really like to convert models and I find the process very rewarding, taking the artwork and descriptions of the characters in the novels and bringing them to life as a miniature. My aim is to have a model of every single Sons of Horus character from the novels. Good luck, there's about 20 of them. The ones I've made so far have their names written under their bases and their initials on the right greaves so you can tell who is who. Some who later become captains later on in the novel series are modelled as sergeants. My collection depicts the Sons of Horus pretty early on in the Great Crusade, round about the time that Loken joined the Mournival. Well, unfortunately for you, mate, you mustn't have read the book very well, because Loken joins the Mournival pretty late in the Great Crusade. Again, this is post-Ulanor that he's joining the Sons of Horus Mournival. Ulanor is right at the very end of the Great Crusade. It's only, a few years out from now when things are going to turn to shit for the galaxy. Which means you're kind of full of shit here. This is not the Sons of Horus early in the Great Crusade. This is the Sons of Horus at the end of the Great Crusade, right before the Horus Heresy. Now, I'm all for converting models, say Mark 7 Space Marines or Primaris Marines, and using them in 30k. I think that's perfectly fine. However, you've got to put some real effort into it. I'm not seeing the effort in the conversions here. There is one Marine Hellblaster on the left there who has a Mark IV Sergeant's helmet. Cool. All the rest of them are in standard Primaris helmets, or these sort of face grill Primaris heads. Put them at least in a Mark IV helmets, and grab a file and take 10 to 20 seconds per knee, square off the knee pads or something. Make them look more like Maximus legs. It's the little things like that that matter to me. Because you've got two totally different scales of Marine in this army. You have some proper Mark IV guys with some multi-melters there, with these massive dudes with plasma guns behind them, and then you've got Terminators who are the same size as the plasma dudes out the front. And it's doing a disservice to what I otherwise think is a really well-painted and nice-looking force. And that's a shame. And the biggest shame of all of this is that this is what's being used to represent the Horus Heresy currently. Is this because this is the best painted army they've got now, because they've got rid of all their talented artists and painters from Forge World? And frankly, they're using a lot of Forge World staff's own armies, and their own armies are, I hate to say it, not what I would often call book tier worthy. I suppose it makes me a cunt to say it that way. Let's just say, we'll be honest, they're not very good painters. Yeah, I said it, don't care. They are painting acceptable armies, yes, but they are not painting the sort of armies you would be winning competitions with, and they're not the sort of armies you want to showcase the hobby as a whole with. You want to show the very best that you have to offer when it comes to these things. I think it goes without saying. Okay? Imagine if McDonald's, when they do the advertising and they show a Big Mac burger, if they showed the Big Mac burger as you really see it as the customer, it's a sloppy fucking bun, tilted to one side with meat hanging out one side, the cheese is hanging out the other, one of the pickles isn't even properly in the bun, it's just sort of stuck on the side. It would be a lot less appetizing as a meal, even though I think McDonald's is shit anyway. It would be a lot less appetizing as a meal, wouldn't it, if they showed you that? Well, it's the same thing with the Horus Heresy. When they get the staff members and they come out and they've got an army and it's obviously dry brushed or heavily over-sponged, it's one flat coat of paint, there's no additional detail picked out. It's like a bare minimum effort paint job. It's not to shit on the person here and say that, hey, you suck, rethink your life. No, not at all. What I'm trying to say is that you want to be showing off this hobby, giving people something to aspire to, showing them the beautiful things that can be done with the miniatures, not the bare effort minimum job that anyone could do. And so I think that's why they picked this particular faction here, because this is a well-painted little army. If everyone could achieve this level, that would be absolutely beyond acceptable. You don't need to achieve this level in a standard game. I'll add that here too. I think a lot of those Forge World paint jobs are perfectly acceptable in, the privacy of your own house and playing games with your mates, that kind of thing. That's fine. Who cares how well or bad something is painted? It doesn't matter. As long as they're having fun and you're having fun, that's what matters. But if you're trying to go out and advertise your product, that's where I think you really need to show the best. The fact that they chose this with Primaris Marines and shit as a representation of the Horus Heresy army, I think is a real disservice to the decade of hard work put in by Alan Bly and other members of the Forge World team, because they took essentially a blurb, a couple of chapters that was written down in some books, and between the Black Library authors and Forge World, they fleshed that out into a full-on narrative that makes sense, and it's talking about the whole rise and fall of Horus, the Traitors' march on Terra, the events surrounding it. They built a whole game system, rules, miniatures, Primarchs themselves. All these different things to help tell this story. And it's just sort of being pushed to the side right now to show off some Primaris Marines. And I think that's really lame. And I'll cap it all off with this. When asked, why are they in Primaris armor? You know what he actually says? I mainly play them as Ultramarines. I actually never play a game of Horus Heresy. So this is actually a 40k Ultramarines army. And it's just being used to represent Horus Heresy in White Dwarf. And they've written a bullshit article about it. A bullshit article that I've just spent about 12 minutes talking about. This right here, as you look at it, is an Ultramarines army. And the guy talking all about how the Horus Heresy appeals to him doesn't even play the game. Now, it doesn't matter if it is or isn't Horus Heresy inspired. Okay? You can proxy anything as anything. You can paint anything how you like. It doesn't matter. How it plays on the tabletop can be removed from how it looks. But to say that this is the representation of the Horus Heresy army, I think is still a massive disservice. Anyway, what do people think about it? What do people think about just the open lying bullshit going on here? That, yeah, this is a Horus Heresy army, let's talk about it. This is Tarek Torgadden. Oh, it's actually an Ultramarines captain. I don't know. Is Simon here being stitched up by the people at White Dwarf? Or White Dwarf being put up to this? I don't know. But it's not great, because this does not appeal to, I think, the majority of the Heresy crowd. I think the majority of people are like, oh, I went and bought a bunch of very expensive Forge World miniatures and worked my ass off to convert them for my army and paint them. And then someone else comes along and just puts in some stock Primaris Marines, complete with purity seals and all their standard Mark 10 war gear and no conversions, and they think that that's equal amounts of effort put into their hobby. Again, not saying you can't do that, but, the other person is trying to have the best game they possibly can of Horus Heresy. Don't ruin it for them. Mac of the Outer Circle, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.